my living room. My name is Lana Labonte, and I am here to uplift, inspire, support, and hopefully that empowers you to be the best version of you you are meant to be. And actually, I usually say, I'm here to support, uplift, inspire, and hopefully that empowers you to be the best version of you you are meant to be. So pardon me, but I was trying to deal with the technology. And as you can see, my stickers on the walls. You know, it was wanting to go vertical. It's doing its own thing. It is what it is. We're coming out of shadow. We are. Surprise, surprise. Crazy times we're living in, isn't it? And so tonight, I'm going to touch upon something that dropped in my meditation the other day. And I want to let you know, you are not alone. We are all in this together. When I say that, it's because it's a collective collaboration. When you feel something, we all are feeling something. We might not be able to put our finger on it, but it is a collective collaboration. And as much as people don't want to believe it, what affects me affects you, and what affects you affects me. Hi, Shakti. So never discount the impact, the power that you have within you to affect others. And I say that from a perspective of like, don't think that just because you're feeling something and you feel down or you feel defeated or deflated or even excited and enjoy, like extremism, whatever it is, doesn't really matter. Whatever you feel, it ripples through the atmosphere. Energy. If you want to know the secrets of the universe, think of energy, vibration, and frequency, because we are the frequent keys here unlocking each other's codes. We are ciphers when we come together. It's like it's fireworks. Our frequencies, our frequent keys unlock each other's codes that when we remember, not just mentally, memory, remember, but remember in the sense of we come back together. Because again, listen to the words, listen to your languaging. There is duplicitousness in the meanings of words. Most words, I'd say pretty much all of them, have at least two meanings, if not more. And if you've listened to my videos before, the way I like to interpret it is this. It sounds simple, but you know, you got to wrap your head around it too. I mean, I didn't just figure this out overnight. A whole almost 50 years worth of reverse engineering, decoding, peeling back the layers, going back to the root source, the origination of what it was, what I am, what I've been, where I'm going. We're all doing this. Whether you're conscious or not, you're doing this. And when people talk about shadow work, you may be conscious of it, you may be unconscious of it. You're still doing it. Keep that in mind. So in this life, whether you choose it or you don't, you're choosing it. Ta-da! They ain't getting out alive. Just saying. I try to add a little humor to the majority of what I share here because we need to lighten the fuck up. Lighten up in the sense of like, you are a light being. Stop being so dense. That's what gives you the heaviness, the weight, why am I carrying the weight of the world onto my shoulders? Because you're playing the victim, you're playing the martyr. If you're telling a story that's disempowering, that's you being dense. And I'm saying that in the sense of energy. Light beings, we're supposed to lighten up. We're supposed to light the room up. Yeah, there'll be times when our light isn't so bright. But when we're being dense, literally being dense and figuratively, like when we're dense, other than the fact that we're just not getting it, I mean, that's another version of that interpretation. But when we're so dense and so heavy, like we can't see through our own crap. Like it's like having it right in your face and you are unwilling to see it. You know, the BS, the belief systems, when you are so dogmatic and your karma is continually eating its own tail, because the definition of karma is the same as crazy. It's you repeating patterns. It's you doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, and then wondering, oh, woe is me. Why is this always happening? I'm saying this with grace and humility and some humor, specifically because I speak from my personal experience. So when I say it the way I say it, it's because, guess what, baby? I am humble enough, and I have a whole lot of humor to recognize my own BS. I call out my own belief systems, because I've been living it for so long that I've had to recognize, oh man, there I go again. There I go again. And no matter what, whatever you think you're seeking is seeking you, because it is you. It's like, get out of your own way and you'll see. Just go to the mirror. I'm looking for something. Ask yourself in the mirror. Like, you want to laugh? I'm serious when I say this. Go to your mirror. Look yourself in the eyes. Hey, that way. I see you. Look in the mirror. Look yourself in the eyes and go, okay, we're seeking something. What is it we're seeking that's seeking us too? And then smile and recognize that is you. That is you too. What you seek, what we go out into the world seeking is seeking us. That is us. Right? So it's hilarious when you really get down to it, because this really is a divine comedy. You are a divine being. And you have to have humor. You have to have humility. You have to be willing to let down your guard, to lighten up, so that you're not heavy and carrying that density. Because the lighter you are, the easier your rite of passage. The rite of passage, I have not spoken about the way it dropped into me, but both James and I were having these conversations a few months ago around the rite of passage. You know, people talk about this being a prison planet, all these disempowering theories, right? The disempowerment comes from the idea that you don't have any power. You're giving it to the external. The idea that we're in a prison planet makes it sound like you didn't have any choice in the matter. When in reality, guess who chose to come down here? Guess who agreed to this contract? Guess who's here living this life? Again, though, go look in the mirror and just ask yourself, do I have any responsibility in this situation? It's a DTD moment. You know, the moment where you go, I can't keep pointing fingers out and blaming and shaming others, because the reality is I got one hell of a loaded gun, and that's trigger happy, and man, it's ricocheting, and it's like my past, my present, my future, that I am continually, again, if you are judging someone else, it's simply you comparing yourself. The idea that you are pointing out always comes right back at you like a boomerang. When you judge another, you're breaking your own heart, because that's you're judging. You think it's the other person. So many in the disempowerment movement of, I'm a victim, lack mentality, they're doing this to me, the martyr, oh, woe is me, oh, why me? I've been there, so I get it, so I can say this. That the pointing the finger out is essentially not taking personal responsibility or accountability for your choices or your life or your human. It's passing off, it's bypassing, like it's exactly what they want you to think, because if that's the case, then, you know, the savior will swoop in, and when you're not taking personal responsibility and accountability for your choices, so that's when you get infiltrated. That's when you're easiest to manipulate, because you're unwilling to recognize it's you all along. And that's what this life is really about, is you reclaiming your power, you remembering who you are. That every time you point a finger and you're breaking your own heart and comparing yourself, you're not here to use these dismissive ways of uplifting yourself. I mean, it takes more energy to put another down in an attempt to lift yourself up, because look at me, I'm better than them, is really actually just showing how much you don't value or believe in yourself. If you have to look toward others to compare yourself, it's because you're unwilling to really truly look at yourself, when in reality those people are showing up to mirror back to you what you're capable of, your strengths and your weaknesses. So what you dislike in another also exists in you. What you like in another, what you admire, is also in you too. The moment you start to recognize with the clarity, with real eyes, with that third eye, not blind, the more you're able to see that that other is you. This is one of the Expiring Age sutras for Kundalini Yoga that I learned. Simplest thing to think. Recognize the other as you. Because that, what they embody is also you too. What they demonstrate, what they mirror back to you, that is you. And then if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. And then you're recognizing the other as you, and that's God too. That means you're God too. Oh, these are just simple theorems that cancel out the negative and show you the reality. But going back to the duplicity in the languaging, that most words have more than one meaning, and you have to be able to see through and get the whole picture by knowing the full story through also recognizing the word spells. So when you hear a word, what is the first thing that it invokes in you? What does it inspire? What is it, what do you feel in your body? Like, these are different techniques you can use. You can write it down. Like, here's a word. If there's a word that triggers you, for example, this is really good. Speaking of shadow work, if you are on the healing path and you're just waking up to this whole shadow shit, I'm just saying, we all got to go through it, and there's different layers to it. There's different levels. It's a never-ending game of finding yourself. That you have to go into the dark crevices to find your gifts just as much as they exist in the light. Like I said, we're light beings. We're here to lighten up. And the only way we can lighten up is if we're willing to go into the dark. And part of that going into the dark is having courage. And exercising that courage shows you your resilience. It shows you how much more you're capable of, because when you face your fear of the unknown, fear of what's in the dark, whatever it is the fear is, the fear has no power over you. And so when you exercise that courage muscle, the heart, basically you got to come from the heart. You got to get out of your head, drop into your heart, and feel. There's no bypassing it. There's no avoiding it. Right? I don't like videos when they tell you you're doing it all wrong. I mean, really, you're always doing it. There is no right or wrong about your approach to it. There's a conscious and unconscious way of it, but that doesn't make it good or bad. That's my point, right? So, like, for example, my sister and I, we're both on different paths, and I'm aware of mine, and she's on her path, and I'm aware of hers. And it's really natural for a lot of us to see how someone else is playing out their life and to be able to tell it like it is, whatever you want to label it, and then think that you know better for that other person. But let me tell you, do you like it when people do that to you? I know I don't. I know I didn't. A good portion of my life was the rebellious one. The one that if you told me to do something, I'd do the opposite. Or actually, I didn't necessarily seek out to rebel. It was more like, when I say somebody told me I couldn't do something, I mean like accomplish. Because I am a go-getter. I have a natural ability to just take something and run with it, to do something, give me a task, boom, I get it done. I am the most resourceful person you'll ever know. I will know where to turn, where to look, who to ask, like especially when I was working in IT. When my systems were down and I had to figure out a way to rebuild the quorum on my cluster server. I mean, I'm talking geek speak over here, but nobody else had had that problem before. I had to go back to the days of DOS on a Microsoft system. So I had to go to command line entry and recreate it. Where most people, no, I'm not Virgo, I'm Leo. So I got some Virgo in my chart, but not that much. I had to go back to old school. And if you know anything about computers, first off, Microsoft, the baseline was never cleaned up, so they just kept putting layers of like crud, you know, and if you don't clean up the foundation, eventually it crumbles, and which is why it had so many issues with viruses. Imagine that. But I think that was done by design as all. So, you know, like controlled obsolescence, but also backdoor. And there's duplicity in that theory and that whole concept of backdoor. So you can go there, you can go there. So like, that's one thing that I was very grateful for in my past, is proving to myself my capability in solving and finding solutions. My rebellion would be against the, you can't do it, or nobody else has done it, so therefore we don't expect you to rise to the solution. And also that made me feel good because it was a test for myself more than it was about a rebellion against what somebody said. Like if somebody told me I couldn't do something, I'd be like, I don't know that I believe that. So let me go test this out. And so to me, it was more to prove myself to myself, not even to the other people. And it's proven in my past also where I've been told to do things that I didn't always agree with. And I was like, boy, they really just want to be able to say they had authority over me. So this is where we are in the world. It's like, who do you want to be the authority over you? So when you think you know something better for another, you have to remind yourself, do you think you'd want to hear that from another person? Would you want someone else to tell you how you should live your life? Or that, hey, you know, this is especially with people who have a strong ego. And during a good portion of my life, I was very strong in my ego. I was very strong in the, you can't tell me what to do unless you prove to me you are an authority, not an authoritative figure, but you are an authority and a professional in what you're speaking to me about. Like, I needed proof, not just a label. So you can tell me you've got all these accolades and stuff. You can tell me all these things. And I still I hold to this. Show me you know. Don't tell me and chat, right? This is just like anything. Show me the money. Don't, you know, actions speak actions speak louder than words. I'm a huge believer in that. Trust people when they show you. Bottom line. So when you see someone else fumbling in their lives, always be humble enough to look back over your life and remember when you yourself were fumbling, how open you were or weren't to receiving feedback or even any forms of suggestion or solutions. Because sometimes in our past, and in my past, I'm just going to use for the example, there have been times where I just wanted somebody to listen to me, to hear me, to see me. And also in a lot of cases I wanted someone to enable me and say, yeah, you're right. You're right. You are a victim. It's their fault. But I'm humble enough to look back at my past in those cases and go, yeah, I was stuck in my shit. I was just stuck in my shit. I was in my BS. And it's very humbling when you get to that come to Jesus moment where you realize, you know what, I think I'm kind of a little sick of my own ish, you know? And you finally just say, okay, I want to get it together and I want to heal. Okay, we're not broken, so we're not really healing. I want to claim and collect all of my pieces and put myself back together like Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall, had a great fall. Nobody else could put him together because he had to be able to put himself together. That's what really, that's my version of the story. You may fall off the wall, you may crumble, you may break into all sorts of pieces, but you can put it all back together again. I'm a firm believer and I am proof positive. Unless you are in such denial, because guess what? We are the sum of the people we hang out with, but we are what we continuously do. Because guess what? I'm going to keep on saying that. Guess what? Guess what? Repetition is the key to mastery. It's what you repeatedly do, what you repeatedly say, and also what you repeatedly see, because believe it or not, that is what propaganda and the media does. Mind control comes from repetition. If you continually watch the same thing over and over again, you also have to consider how it's influencing you. Infiltration, influencing, fluent, meaning it's fluid and you don't even realize it's happening. But we are influenced. You can say manipulated, but you know what? The reality is it's influence. It can be good and bad. It can be just neutral. So you need to also understand that the people you surround yourself with, you have to ask yourself, am I willing to receive information? Even forgiveness is unnecessary. You know why? Because there's nothing to forgive. It's the judgment that caused the idea that you had to forgive to begin with, but there was nothing to judge. The shame and the blame, they're lame, so therefore there's no forgiveness needed. We have to get out of these programmed words that we use, you know, just like I said, there's no such thing as we need healing. Healing, the other word for healing, is think of your heel of your foot. Heel, right? What do? You tell a dog or a horse to heel. It's a control mechanism. So disempowerment is in saying that you're broken or that you need to be fixed or healed. But we want empowerment. We want people to surround us that are going to hold us accountable. And if we're unwilling, because a lot of times it's harder to keep yourself accountable, you need others around you to reinforce that and support you. And there are going to be times someone is going to call you out and you're not going to like it and you're going to want to curse them and cuss them and whatever. But the reality is that's a true friend and you need to hold on to them. I mean, I've had some people over the years in my life, they didn't want to hear what I had to say, and I'm okay with that. But I would not be a true friend, and I certainly wouldn't be authentic if I turned around and turned a blind eye. If I just said, oh yeah, you're right, you keep on acting the way you're acting. Because the unfortunate thing is if you yourself are somebody who wants to stay in integrity and authenticity, you have to also be vulnerable enough to put yourself on the line and surround yourself with people who will also hold you accountable to that. You want to be a high value, high quality person, you have to also establish a standard and also a circle of people to which it will hold you steady. And I want to read what you said because I did not catch that. It went back to all messages. Here we go. So that way said, here's what I can say for a fact. If you use or claim the name you think is yours, it's yours for any reason whatsoever, you are complicit and part and party to all the crimes against humanity. Just saying. In what respect? Okay, other than that, I don't forgive anyone unless they ask. Otherwise, I'd be judging. Depending on what you're talking about. Because we can get so caught up in the languaging, but you have to be very clear with yourself that what you recognize in yourself, what you recognize in another, what you do not create, you do not own. Don't even concern yourself with things that don't belong to you. How about that? If it is something that belongs to somebody else creates something. I think if I'm understanding, you can correct me in the comments, what you may be referring to is there's a beautiful sign that a dear friend of mine who just passed not long ago had at the entry of his door. Please be responsible for the energy that you bring into my home. There was more to the write-up, but I absolutely adored and loved it because it's saying be accountable, be attentive, be in alignment and authenticity, that when you walk in my house, you're not bringing me a bunch of shit because I invited you as the sovereign, authentic being that I believe you to be into my home. So therefore, leave anything outside that does not belong in this space. That if we are going to create a higher vibration, we're going to lighten up, we have to leave the density out, right? So and again, the density is basically the stories, the thoughts, the ideas that disempower and keep us heavy, or even in that victimhood mindset, right? The things that we think should be ought not to be, period. Meaning, leave them. Leave them. If they're not supporting, if it doesn't uplift, if it doesn't support, there is no reason for them. So we don't concern ourselves with things that don't belong to us, because that's none of our business. As they say, everybody's got an opinion, but not everybody deserves or needs to voice that opinion, right? Like, we're living in a cult of personalities where it's like, I have an opinion, so therefore I should speak it. We all have opinions. You know what they're like, right? Keep that shit to yourself, literally. Because it's none of my business what you think of me. Our society or cultures around the world have gotten us so concerned about what everybody else is thinking or speaking and saying that it's actually trying to muzzle us from saying anything. It's from one extreme to the other. Like, your vote, your voice, everything matters. Which they're actually lying about. And yet, while it matters over here, we don't want you to speak over here. Wait a minute, you wanted me to speak up over here, but you don't want me to speak up over here. You can't have it both ways. It's contradicting the whole concept. If people don't want to hear something, they don't have to listen. On the other hand, people shouldn't be speaking up about things just because they think they have to speak their opinion. Like, you see where I'm going with this? This is the extreme world we're living in, where people are voicing opinions as if they're relevant when they're nobody's business. And then you've got people who are afraid to say anything because they're seeing how things are playing out, and how censorship, for example, is a great example, right? Anyway, clearing the slate, cleaning the slate. We got Pluto coming in with a big old bulldozer. You know, he's going bulldozer, taking that bulldozer and going bulldozer deep, as I joke around about, because literally you can't hide this stuff anymore. It's clearing and cleansing. Things are brought to the surface to the point where you've got to face it. You've got to confront it, or it is going to be the one thing that takes over, just like a cancer, literally, figuratively. And so we are in some really powerful times. I couldn't be happier to be alive. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I don't want to get out of bed. I can tell you, hibernation is a great thing. And in fact, up until about Friday night, I was like, ugh, I got so much stuff I want to get done, but I wasn't feeling accomplished. And then I'm laying in bed and it hit me. Aside from the fact that you already know, I'm going through a major life reworking in my home, and my dad, we're doing things. Friday night, something clicked for me. After that new moon last week, it was like, I felt like I struck gold. Now, I can share some things with y'all, but I can't do it for you. I mean, my inner child is over here going, I want to share this with the world. Everybody needs to know this. And then there's the wise woman in me that says, you know how many times you've done that? And then people laughed at you, or they wanted you to do it for them, or they wanted you to hold their hand, and they wanted you to tell them all the details. And yet they weren't giving you anything in return. So there was no receptivity. This is me sharing my wisdom right now. I have been in the process since last summer of correcting my status. And the reason I'm doing that is to be able to literally take ownership of my 𝐁𝐨𝐬𝐬𝐲, straw man, all caps, dead corpse at sea, reclaiming my sovereignty, reclaiming my divine being. You don't want to be a citizen, a person, or a resident, nor a human, nor a person, a people, place, or thing, because you are a divine being. We could say hue as in light, man. You can say that, but not in the terms that man has created. Because this is about the game of life and the bankers running the world. Because yeah, they came in, they infiltrated the system. They took away what we had really established as our trusts. Yeah, and trust has dual meaning there too. The idea that we couldn't even trust them to take care of our financial or fiduciary responsibilities because we entrusted them, that they failed to remind us that we were supposed to reclaim our securities at the age of 18. They just went, if they don't know, what they don't know would hurt them. We can take care of that. We'll do whatever we please. Problem is that's what they used to teach us in the old schoolhouses. You want to talk about resets? Kill off generations who are aware of this stuff. And then you get a bunch of orphans trying to figure it out, flailing about. Like, I mean, most of us are just here going, how did I not know about this? Because it wasn't passed on. Because generationally, families used to pass on property, trusts, estates. The government didn't have that much control over all that. The banks are the ones that came in, and now they work as the, guess what? Security transfer agents. So whenever you sign a document, an application, anything related to getting credit or purchasing, or whether it's a credit card, a loan, a mortgage, you're even a mortgage, by the way. Every time you sign on the dotted line, they go to the United States Treasury and they take out that money, and then they expect you to not realize they're supposed to hand it to you. And they expect you to pay back interest. And let's just top this off, that they take the security, which appears to be a bill to you because you weren't taught this. It's technically a bond, and that little coupon at the bottom that says detach and return with payment is supposed to be your interest dividends. Talk about some mind fuckery. So that bond, that statement that you think is a bill that comes in the mail, or whether it's electronic or on paper, is your security, is a bond. And they're telling you, here's your interest dividend. They're trading it behind the scenes. That bond might be, for you, a couple $1,000s, but for them, that could be millions of dollars. And they are trading that for like 33 years. Just one example. So I started on this path because I've been guided this way for a very long time, and I was waiting to find out what would be the best route to go about this process. Hence why I have offered my affiliate link for the Freedom People, because they have helped me get through most of this process already. But then I found some other people who have some amazing information as well. So like, you never just stay with one course of action. You want to be fully informed. There is no legal remedy. You have to lose the name to win the game. Also, in fact, I wish someone would prove me wrong. That's why you have to change it to a spiritual name. But that's part of the process as well. Yes, you have to lose the name. You copyright your 𝐁𝐸𝐲, your straw man. You put it in your trust. You protect it. And then while you're in the process of correcting that status and relieving yourself of the debtor, you're no longer the debtor, then you go and you apply for your spiritual name passport, which has no social security number associated with it. But you have to know all these details. And all of that information is in the codes, is in the securities, it's all in the information. Most people don't read. They see information up to a certain point and they stop. It's a lot. It's a lot of information to do the research. And there are a lot of people out there that have done it all. And there are some people that I follow, and right now, I am like a kid in a candy store, that I feel like I struck gold with the most recent information that I've just taken tons of notes. I spent all afternoon and evening, Saturday and Sunday, specifically Saturday. Like, I spent at least an hour listening to a 3-hour-long workshop course video And it's available on YouTube. I will put that in the comments. I put it in my description, and you are more than welcome to go and follow Paths to Freedom. She's phenomenal. This woman, she gets it, and she recognizes the languaging too. And so recognizing that there are options, and that in order to really truly win the game, you got to learn the rules. See my community post is all I can say. I've actually come to your page. I haven't looked at everything. There's a lot of information out there. The bankers run the world. It's a banker's unconstitutional constitution. They infiltrated, what was it, 1999 or something changed in, well, we know about, the Jekyll Island stuff. But if you can acknowledge that you can complain about it, or you can learn to play the game, and then you can win at it. Because it's unlimited funds. When you set yourself up properly, now everything is just, I can't even explain it. You would have to learn it yourself. And I can't. And I'm not meant to. Because in order to take back your life, you also have to learn why and how to go about this. You need to learn the Stamp Act of 1863 and the UCC codes and the USC codes and the Consumer Rights Acts and the Securities Exchange Commission. Like, all the information is there and available to you. Your car loan, for example, if you bought it at his dealership, which I just did, it's like, you cannot have a promissory note and at the same time have a mortgage or a car loan. If they are not together at the same time, like they're traveling together, then it's null and void. But that's a whole nother conversation. Play, have fun, and enjoy the now. Well, this is the point, right? Like, so many people are in this struggle and survival mode. And I'm over here going, I feel like I struck gold. And it's because I'm seeking out solutions because I don't see problems. If you are in a problem mindset, you're going to find problems, right? If you are in a lack mentality, you're going to constantly create situations. You're going to manifest more of the lack. So you have to place yourself in a position of power. You have to choose to be the victor. You have to choose to be the producer, the star attraction, the star role of your life, because your life is a movie. So why not live it the way you intended to live it? Your soul came in here. You came for a mission, but most people have taken a back seat and they're playing extras in the roles of this craziness, this nonsense out in the world stage. Like, all the world's a stage right now. I'm not saying there's stuff that isn't atrocious and it isn't happening, but it's there to take you out of your piece. Literally, place you back into your fragmented pieces. Because if you're not whole, you don't have the whole story. Who's running the show? That's part of the disempowerment program that they started out when we were being indoctrinated into this, slave nation. And every single group has been marginalized and enslaved or at some point in history. The problem is that by creating labels, saying that we are colors or races or genders or this or that, that's disempowering. Until you look at history and recognize that, again, the victors, doesn't mean they're good or bad people, are the ones who write history. Erecting their statues to be worshipped so that they get off, literally. And people still have not figured out. And so based on the financial system and based on the banking system, these groups of people think we're idiots. Because we are. Because we're gullible. Because we're not reclaiming our securities. We don't know how to play the game while they're over there living their lives because they know it. And yet people think it's us versus them, and it isn't. It's just us versus us. It's us versus ourselves. That, again, who you seek is yourself. And so I want to title this Inspiration versus Expiration, because what I was listening to in my mind and what was channeling through as I was coming out of my meditation was, Every time you exhale, you die a little. But every time you inhale, you come back to life. That's gold right there. Do you realize how precious this life is? That every breath you take is the Spirit of God. That is life force. That is prana. That is the energy that moves you. It animates your being, your light being. That we are expiring or we are inspiring. Expire is to exhale. Inspire is to inhale. Right? But are we expiring or inspiring? That's always the question you have to ask yourself. Am I holding my breath and not giving myself the inspiration that I need? Am I not taking in that breath? Therefore, I'm expiring because I'm not taking it in. Does the exit allow for the possibility of re-entry? Because what goes out, it makes the space to allow more in. And what comes in will be cleansed back out. So we are like, again, just like waves, right? Currency. We are the currency. Hello. Energy is supposed to stay in motion, fluidity, like the water, like the ocean. Ocean motion. The one thing that continues to live on is the spirit. This is the breath of life. So it doesn't matter if you stay alive. Yeah. Right? The water, the ocean, the movement, the fluidity of the breath. The breath is what keeps us alive. So whether being expired by a living being or moving through the atmosphere all around, spirit is always there. Spirit is always alive. So our body may expire. It may come to the end of its term, but our spirit that comes in and goes out continues on. It's still here. We are still here. We don't go anywhere. Well, I can't say where. Where is. You won't know till you know. Spirit is energy, is God, source, animating all of life. Seen and unseen. There is no life without spirit. And even spirit moves through what appears to be unspiritual, because to be spiritual means aware of the life force energy in and around us. You get it? Spirit is in the word spiritual. Breath is in every breath we take. So spirit is life, and spirituality, spiritual beings, is breath being. You are being breathed to life always. And I like to equate it to the fact that every breath you take is just proving how much God loves you, because you don't even have to think about it. Conscious or unconscious, whether you're breathing with your mind on it, like, oh, I'm breathing, that's right, I'm breathing, right? Or you pause just for a moment of gratitude for every breath you take, like, that's love. Even if you don't feel you're somebody who's lovable or that you feel anybody loves you, your breath is proving that you're lovable and that you are loved. Because as you take that breath in, you are invigorating, you are inspiring, your energy is creating the momentum, the animation in your being. That breath is fueling the energy, the battery of your heart. That's the lungs to help pump it, to keep all of your cells alive. Like this is an amazing system. We don't even have to think about how beautiful it is, because it takes care of us. which is why it's so important that we take care of it. But ironically, not everyone, through what appears to be unspiritual, right? Like, not everyone can latch on the concept of spirituality and what it means to be spiritual. Again, to be spiritual means to be aware of the life force energy moving in and around you at all times. It's to recognize the spirit within you is the breath that you take in, inspire, and expire. You expand and you contract. You inhale, you exhale. Spirit is breath, and it will always be. And even when you have expired your last breath, that spirit will live on. Why do you think? They say they measured, I forgot the gentleman's name who did this study. Was it the 7 grams? You know, the movie with Will Smith, where when the soul leaves the body, the soul is the spirit. When the soul leaves the body, they measured each of the people, and it was measured out to be 7 grams, wasn't it? Worth of weight that leaves and exits the body in the moment. You are a living, breathing spirit. Your body is guided by and moved by spirit. You can call it soul, you can call it spirit, you can call it breath. The Holy Spirit. You are not your body nor your mind. You are much greater than the physical because you are timeless because of spirit. Remember that you are not just the drop in the ocean. You are the ocean, yet you're human. This physical contained being is more contained like a drop because what we see has limitation physically. One is expansive and the other is contained. And it's up to us to take the spirit and infuse this life with inspiration, to not just take it in because, oh, wow, you know, I'm just breathing. I'm here, yeah. But also recognize the gifts that it brings. Because the moment you wake up in the morning, it's like gratitude for being alive, to have this existence, this experience in this life. Okay, some people may not be too happy with where they're at in their lives right now, but that doesn't mean they don't have something to be grateful for. Each and every one of us always has something to be grateful for. And no matter what your story that you are telling or have been telling, you can always change it. That's how powerful you are. It's like I was telling my dad, I'm like, Dad, please breathe. Please relax. Be careful what you wish for because you will create it. The more you ruminate, the more you fixate, you are drawing that to you. So, you know, anxiety and depression, the more you mull in it, it comes to you. And it's like the pig pen, or, you know, wowsy, wowsy, woo woo. I think I talked about it in the last video. Flintstones or the Peanuts. It's like, did you ever notice they drew to them those situations? We're no different. We are master manifestors. And the things that we fixate on, we create in our lives. Because repetition is the key to mastery. So again, if your record, you know, the deeper the groove, the harder to move, this is you mastering your mind. But it's through the breath that you will truly and ultimately master your life. Because when you master your breath, when you become so aware, right, finite versus infinite, when you master your breath, you slow yourself down into the awareness of what your mind is constantly ruminating on. What is your old record players playing on repeat? Because when you start to recognize, oh my gosh, is that what's been going on? You know, you'll hear people say, wow, that's some crazy thinking. I don't want to be quiet. I don't want to listen to my mind. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy until you confront it. And then when you're aware of the crazy, then you have the opportunity to also challenge it, release it, thank it, and say, okay, we're going to create some new stories now. You are the creator of your life. of your reality. You always get a choice. And so when you master the breath, you slow down, stay present in the moment. And you recognize, wow, those are my thoughts. But don't own them as like you have to go, ugh, those are my thoughts? No, like, huh, that's interesting. Tell me more, that's curious. Where did that originate? Whose voice is it in? Because sometimes you'll hear the voice of it and be like, whoa, I don't think I don't think that's mine. Because it might not be. Because again, if you grew up in an atmosphere where you were constantly berated or constantly criticized or constantly on the defense, in trouble, then you were taught how to react, not how to respond or to question in the way that was healthy, because you learned a survival tactic. And a lot of this old programming that we need to clear out and clean up is really the old traumas, the old survival skill tactics that are from like the little kid in you, or even, you know, the preteen. But as soon as you got out of your house and you started to notice you were encountering situations that required you to go back into those survival tactics, it just showed how deep the groove was, right? You don't want to claim them in the sense that this has got control over me. In fact, the moment you become aware of the thoughts, and it's very helpful to write things down. This is just my method. You take the pen. This is the most cathartic thing that you will do, is write down all the things that come to you and question it. Where did this originate? Whose voice was this in? Is it true? Is it kind? Is it relevant? Do I really believe this? I must at some point if I'm hearing it in my mind. But the moment you become aware of it is when you disempower it. Because while you are willing to see it and hear it, the moment you're challenging it, it's taking the steam out of it. It's taking the power. It's literally the house of cards crumbling down, falling, right? It's just like fear. When you look fear in the eye, it's like, shit, you're like, something's looking at me. Wait a minute here. I don't think I like that. Because the fear's afraid of you. Looks like a big old monster. And you watch how much it softens and like, oh, I'm just sorry. I'm here. I just was trying to watch out for you. I was coming up with ideas in this story too. Yeah. You have to be willing to confront it. Like, you have no power over me. Oh shit, you're right. There are times I have those conversations like, you know, that's not true. What kind of bullshit? Like, those are conversations I have with myself because I know how I can make myself start laughing and go, you're right. And it literally disempowers the belief. It dismantles all of it. And that's what we need to do, is we have to reverse engineer it and get it back to the source and where that originated from. Why do I think that way? Well, there was that time when I was a little kid and I got in trouble and blah, blah, blah. My mom used to say to us, you know how I knew you had done something wrong? Because children are so innocent. We admit our guilt because we know we did something that wasn't right or that we wouldn't feel proud of. And so it's like, I didn't do it. And of course, as a child, you're like, why did I do that? Because we knew we didn't do something right. So the I didn't do it is actually a good way of saying, your inner child saying, it wasn't natural to me, but I did it because I was curious and now I'm not owning it, right? But it's telling on me too. That's how we learn, especially as kids. So my mom would say, you'd admit your guilt before I even knew. So you were telling on yourself. My mom was very, very good at teaching us through paying attention to the words we speak. So ultimately what I'm trying to get at, you have to question the thoughts. Yeah. Where does it come from? If you can get to the root source, you'll have a better time of literally rewriting over those grooves and creating newer, more empowering beliefs. But you have to continue to also confront it when it does rear its head, because it will continue to test you. That's just how the universe works. Is it likes to poke and provoke. Hey, did you get the lesson? And then you can go, okay, not at this turn, not this round, Satan. I've been there, done that. My life has been a repeated lesson to where now when the red flag rears itself, it's like, yeah, no, I'm sorry, it doesn't jive with me. And I'm very grateful that I'm able to do that. There are moments when I think I could like act like I didn't hear that, or I didn't see that, or I could play dumb. But honestly, I don't have the time. I don't have the resources or the energy to expend upon something that doesn't serve me or anyone else. So I've made it my mission to continually stay in my authenticity and in alignment with my integrity, that the people that I want to be surrounded with are people that not only bring me up and make me feel better about myself, but I also do the same for them. If you're in my circle, I am your biggest cheerleader, but I will also be your accountability buddy. Like if you go to my gym, I will help you. And that's the difference. It's the difference between raising from the heart space or the head space. If it feels like it boosts your ego, then you know it's coming from your head. If you think you got a story to tell, that's all in your head, baby. But when it's in your heart, you get the warm, the fuzzies, the zzz, excitement. It like zzz through the body. Where the head, it's like, look at me. You know, it's like you're a peacock, except for all you got is a head showing. You know it and you feel it. You can sense the difference. I know each and every one of you listening is able to discern between your head and your heart. It's just a matter of being continually in the spaces and, yes, reinforcing the heart space versus the ego claiming ownership over something like, look at me, look at me. That's typically what they do. The ego is still a tool. The ego is there to be the observer. And it is not something like, okay, you see some of the people in the spiritual community, when you first get into this stuff, it's like you hear people talk about, you have to kill the ego. And I'm over here going, these people don't realize how violent they sound. Like, I'm going to go back to this world. We got enough violence. We don't have to attack or shame and blame ourselves over things that ultimately, if we see it, we acknowledge it, we accept it. It is what it is. Om Tat Sat. But the question is whether or not it has power over you or you give it to it. That's when it becomes a detriment. You want an empowerment, not a detriment. You want something that you can contribute, not rip out. So when we look at personal development melted into the heart, you know, even the ego needs love. Like, you can reward your own ego for being the observer and the witness. Like I said, master the mind. You master the breath to master the mind. Because when you slow down the breath and you become present in the moment, you become aware of the thoughts of the mind, which allows you to master the mind. Okay, the thoughts are going out on a crazy tailspin. You bring it back. You train your mind. That you challenge it when it goes into these crazy thoughts that you've been thinking so long, that typically the reason for wars is essentially dogmatic belief systems. You're supposed to go along with me. My mind is right. I want to be right. No, I don't care if I'm happy. My mind has to win. That's the ego, right? That's an unmastered mind. The mastered mind is humble enough to go, I see you, I know what you're capable of, but here is your task. You're here to observe. We're here to challenge anything that comes up. And this is really for discernment, not for judgment, not for comparison, although there's a slight amount of comparison. And there is always going to be a level of judgment. It's whether or not you're honest with yourself about it, to recognize that it doesn't have power over you. And then when you do catch yourself judging yourself, all it's telling you is where you don't feel worthy. Because a judgment is essentially telling on yourself that I'm comparing myself because I don't feel I'm good enough. That's humble pie right there. The ego essentially is the humble pie. Is it needs to be reminded that it is still loved, it is still relevant, and it does serve. But you have to train it in the way that you need it to serve you rather than serving it as your master. So you master that breath so you can slow down long enough to be in awareness of the mind and the programs that you need to also work on. And when you master your breath, you can master your mind and then master your life, and you're overall mastering your domain. And that comes with all of the territory. The banking system is a direct reflection of how much you value yourself. That's part of this life, part of this game, right? I don't want to be right either. I just want to be happy. But that's the heart, right? It's not the heart that leads you astray. It's the head that gets in the way. And the head that's like an unruly child going out all amok. But to master your domain in this life is to get right with your heart and your mind. You know, this is that, 6 inches from the head to the heart. You're supposed to drop down in. And you're supposed to align. Listen to your heart. It will speak, it will whisper the sounds of the soul, the whispers of the soul. Here is your mission. This is what you came here for. It will tell you if you listen. And when you're willing to listen and let the spirit move you, animate you in the direction you're meant to go, your life is golden. It's only when you get tripped up by your comparisons, your judgments, your boomerang, you know, breaking your heart with that loaded gun, playing the victim, wanting others to do things for you rather than taking personal accountability and responsibility for your life. You can't skip over some of this work. I'm here to tell you, you may try to find the easy way, but that could turn into the hardest way too. Most people don't realize how much they are struggling because they're trying to do what they think is the easy way is actually the hard way. Especially when shadow work comes up, the idea that, well, I don't want to feel that. Well, it feels like shit, but guess what? You know what we are, right? We are sensitive beings. Sentient means we're sensitive. We're meant to have 5 senses. Sense your ability, your intuition. 5 senses. If you don't feel it, it won't reveal it, and you can't. I'm not going to say heal it, but that used to be my common way of saying it. I used to say you have to feel it to heal it. And these days, I'm here to say that you're here to feel it all. Feel it fully. Reclaim and connect all of your fragmented pieces to your wholeness. That's more important to me than anything in this world, is that recognizing the fragments, those little pieces, you're like a puzzle. You need to be put back together because you got everything you need right here. It's just that some things you have been shamed into dismissing and brushing off as if they don't belong to you. And some of those things are the biggest gifts in your life. And there's purpose in your pain. And in the pain, you will find the pleasure. You will find the joy. There is that sweet spot, that sweet nectar in all of it. The yin and the yang. Nettle and mugwort has been my drink to go to lately. I'm convinced that mugwort clears the pineal gland as well. So, and they also amps up your dreams if you're a dreamer. So just consider, when you numb the pain, you numb the joy. And the root cause of addiction, the root below the surface of all addiction is the pain avoidance, is the running from what doesn't even exist. It's a boogeyman. It's a story. You cannot recreate the past because it has already happened. But when we live from the trauma response, we live from the past. Yeah, everybody is telling the truth at their level. It's true. You just have to be willing to believe them when you see it. When we're living in the trauma response, we're living in the past. We are continually recreating that energy, reinforcing it, and we're disempowering ourselves as we're allowing it to rule and run ourselves. The moment you can slow down long enough and just recognize every trigger, every word, okay? So this is one of the things I started to say earlier. I highly recommend, if you know there's something that triggers you, something that somebody around you does consistently enough that you recognize, God, I really hate it when they do that. I want you to write that down. Let this be your lesson, your mission for this year, for this next month. How about that? If you know somebody, so-and-so does this one thing and it drives me crazy, I cannot stand when they do it, right? It's that palpable for you. And if they do something that triggers you, write that down. I have some things with my dad, for example. With my dad, I love him dearly. Well, I'm going to use him as an example because I love him so much. And because he came from a generation of lack. It was during the, he didn't experience lack, but because it was passed on from the wars, he took it on as his own story, but it wasn't his story. I can see that. I can't tell him to see it, although there are times I'm like, Dad, stop. You have nothing to worry about. You have more than what most people have. Remember to have gratitude for what you have. So write down what it is somebody does, and it could be something they do that you see disempowers them, or it could be something you think is an attack against you. In this particular case, I don't feel this is an attack against me. I feel sad. It's annoying, but it's a sadness at the root of it for me. And you have to acknowledge what is the real emotion that it invokes in you. Is it anger? Is it frustration because you can't help or fix them? I mean, there's so much that you can unpack with just one person, one thing like this. Is it like you feel helpless because you can't help them see? You can't make them let go of it or see their value? Because like I said, with my dad, for example, when it comes to certain things, I'll be like, he'll say something about money. And I'm like, Dad, I love you. You don't need to feel like something is too expensive, or, like lack is an example of not valuing or feeling valuable. If we think we don't have enough, or even people, and I'm using this as an example, like seriously, people who talk about money like, that's so disgusting. They just have to flaunt their money. You know what I'm saying? Remember what I said earlier about how people will put others down to try to make themselves lift up, like to try to lift themselves up. They'll point that finger like they're such, show-offs because they've got so much money. You know what the translation is? God, that's not fair. If I had that amount of money, I'd do something differently with it. And so in order for them to feel righteous or better, they put others down. How is that effective? It isn't. It's actually really sad, because by any means of comparison, you're showing where you don't hold value in yourself. If you were saying something is too expensive for you, or you think somebody pays too much, I can't imagine owning that, that's too expensive for me. It translates to, I wouldn't spend my money on that, because if I had that amount of money, I wouldn't pay for that. And then in some way, shape, or form, you don't feel like you have that amount of money. So you're just doing this loop. And a lot of people do it. So when I hear my dad talk about certain things, what I really translate and hear is, I don't feel valuable enough. So any form of lack, a conversation around money, is trying to find value in themselves. And it makes my heart sad because I can see the value and it doesn't require money. But the moment you start putting people or money down when it's simply a tool, and the spiritual war is also to tell you, or to the spiritual war that we're at right now, that's going on in the world, is also to make you think that you do not want money because it's evil. It's been like that for a very long time, but actually, happiness is your birthright, with or without money. But at the same time, it is supposed to be yours as well, because again, I go back to what I'm doing right now is about reclaiming your securities. You may not think you want money because you think it's evil, that only evil people have it. And if you have that belief system, you need to confront that. That is so not empowering. Because then what it is a self-fulfilling prophecy and perpetual struggle in life to think, well, how are you going to live in this life if you think money's evil, but you need it to live? Unless you found some magical cure to that one, you're creating your own hamster wheel of suffering. When you start to recognize that money is simply a tool, it's an instrument, literally. Frequency. Currency. Money is currency, is frequency. It is an instrument you have to learn to play. This is the game of life. And banks are supposed to be there for your benefit. Like I said, when you sign an application, they go back to the U.S. Treasury and they get that money. That money is your money. But because you didn't reclaim the trust, you have actually, through power of attorney, given permission to the bank to collect, to trade, to make money. And they're not even supposed to hold that as collateral or asset, but that's security fraud. But that's, again, you got to learn the codes, you got to learn the language. And the moment you start to click and get it, which I have known for a very long time, it's just that the one last little clue popped in on Friday. And I was like, oh, people have no clue. If you learn this game that I'm in the process of learning, you will realize the world is beyond your oyster, that there is infinite money out there for all of us. That when you see the $1 trillion debt that we supposedly have in this country, do you know that really the reason that we have a debt is because people have not claimed their securities? So there's all this money, credit, not debt, that's unclaimed. And while it goes unclaimed, the debt ceiling raises. So until you get your shit straight and go claim your securities, we're going to continue to be in debt, supposedly, and voluntarily paying taxes and not fixing anything because it doesn't serve anyone. All it does is put you as a slave to the system, because that's what it is. It's you're a minor until you turn around and you go to the big leagues. You have to learn to get on the right side of the bank and let them work for you. And you know why? Because the bank acts as the security transfer agent to getting your funds from the U.S. Treasury. It was designed that way. We just weren't taught how to utilize the system. So again, I will put Paths to Freedom's information down in the description, specifically because she has a wealth of information. And if you are a go-getter and if you're the type of person like me, you'll see the value in this. And you will recognize the importance of reclaiming your securities, of correcting your status. You will be floored. And this doesn't even have to do with correcting your status. It's just taking your bills and turning it around as paid. All of it. I'm not here. It doesn't cost a thing for me to share information. And she's not charging anything. She's got it on YouTube. So I highly recommend, if you have a moment, if you want someone to help you and do some of the work for you, you can click my affiliate link with the Freedom People. They'll help you. They're beautiful people. But there's still so much more to learn beyond the help that they will provide, because you have to also be accountable and take personal responsibility for your divine being. And it will take you in the direction, your wildest dreams that you can't even imagine. It's a game changer. That's all I can say. It's a game changer. And if you want the game to be in your favor, you need to learn the rules. As soon as you learn the rules, you start to realize, okay, baby, this is gravy now. It's all about learning another language. It's a different lifestyle. But are you ready for it? Do you really truly want it? Because a lot of people out there, they're so afraid. They don't. They want someone else to tell them what to do. All of your hearts. Yes, my heart to yours. Ultimately, I want every one of us. I want us all thriving. I am your biggest cheerleader. I will cheer you on because you are here to serve your gifts to the world. Humanity needs you. Humanity needs me. I'm doing what I can do. As soon as I get this lined up, I'll do more. Because that's what I want to do. And that's what I know I'm here to do. And this is a big part of it. So, I hope this was informative for whoever has tuned in. I'm sending so much love from my living room. If this tickled your fancy even the slightest bit, please click the like button. Make sure you've subscribed. Click that notification bell so that anytime I go live, you get notified, because I have noticed people are getting unsubscribed off of my channel. I don't know what's going on there, but you know how the algorithm works. Please help turn the algorithm in my favor. Leave a comment after the video. That really helps too. Don't worry, West Fork Pottery, you can catch me again live next time, I promise. But please make sure you put a comment in the after notes, because if you have any questions, I always respond to the questions and the comments in my comments, okay? Everyone out there, just know everybody's being shaken and stirred. All of our stuff is coming up to the surface and it's being served up for confrontation. And confrontation is not a negative thing, by the way. If somebody didn't serve it up to you, or if you didn't serve it up to yourself, how are you going to ever grow? Because the only place we ever grow is outside of our comfort zone. So thank whoever it is who pokes you, provokes you, triggers you, awakens you, holds you accountable. Because that's what we're really truly here to be. We should be for one another, and especially for ourselves. But also remember that not everybody wants to hear it. So be discerning. Recognize what is requested and when a person is willing and open to receiving as well. Because we are receptive beings. I like a little constructive criticism. I don't have a problem with it. But also remember, opinions are like you-know-whats, and everybody's got one, and some of them stink more than others. So have a great night. I love you so much. Mwah!